Sorry about that last video getting caught off early. So now we're looking at, again, post-World War II nationalist movements. We're going to start with India and South Africa. India was going through decolonization. Like many of the other colonies, there was a whole movement after World War II to get rid of colonies. And the leader of the nationalization movement in India was Mahatma Gandhi. And his overall goal was, of course, independence for India from Britain. His major strategy that he used was nonviolence and peaceful protest. He didn't want bloodshed, and it was effective. Eventually, India got its independence. Even Martin Luther King Jr. here in the United States copied these nonviolent strategies of Gandhi in the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. Nelson Mandela in South Africa was trying to end apartheid. Apartheid, of course, was the legalized segregation of the black majority in South Africa. Mandela was actually put in prison for his actions. He was seen as undermining the government. But while he was in prison, his fame and popularity continued to grow because people realized that he wasn't backing down, that he was willing to stand up for what he believed in. So, of course, by the time he got out of prison, he was so popular that he was the leader of the nationalist movement. He eventually became president of South Africa. And, of course, he was instrumental in ending apartheid in South Africa. So, there's three major events that take place that are seen as nationalist movements in the late 20th century. The anti-apartheid movement in South Africa that we just talked about, the protests in Tiananmen Square that we talked about previously, and then the fall of the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall had gone up during the Cold War. It was designed to divide East and West Berlin, communist and non-communist Berlin. And the Berlin Wall really became the visible symbol of the Cold War. So when it came down in 1989, a lot of people saw this as the Cold War's coming to an end. It's finally over. We can start reconciling. Now, it took a couple more years till 1991 for the Soviet Union to actually totally fall apart. But democratic ideas were spreading rapidly across Eastern Europe at this point. In the 1990s, we start to see a lot of not a lot, but some significant ethnic cleansing movements. Ethnic cleansing is the mass expulsion or killing of the members of an unwanted ethnic or religious group. So there's two instances of ethnic cleansing that we looked at in class. Rwanda and Bosnia and Herzegovina. In Rwanda, there was a civil war between the Hutu and the Tutsi. Eventually, when the plane carrying the president goes down, the Hutu blame the Tutsi for that, and they eventually use that as an excuse to start murdering the Tutsi. In Bosnia and Herzegovina, the genocide there is part of a larger conflict going on. The Bosnian Wars had started shortly after Yugoslavia broke apart. The Serbs wanted to get rid of the Muslims in Bosnia, so they started attacking them and in some cases outright killing them. Number 9 looks at two newer nationalist movements, actually, Pan-Africanism and Pan-Arabism. Both of these are the goals of a political union of either Native Africans or Native Arabs. So in the case of Pan-Africanism, you would be wanting to create basically a united Native Africa, Arab, a united Native Arabia, or however you wanted to view it. All of this is connected to nationalism, the desire to unite people of similar history and ethnicity, to have a nation, the group of people with that similar history and ethnicity, be a nation, an actual country. Towards the end of the Cold War, we start seeing a de-Stalinization process. Now, this actually starts in the middle of it, honestly, to start with, but Nikita Khrushchev was still more of a hardline communist. He did get rid of some of the harsher policies of Stalin, but Khrushchev continued to expand the nuclear program. He continued to be very friendly with Cuba and other communist nations. In the 1980s, we see a different form of de-Stalinization and decommunization, really, with Mikhail Gorbachev. He instituted two reforms, Glasnost and Perestroika. Glasnost gave more personal freedoms, freedom of speech, demonstration, travel, political choice. And Perestroika allowed for economic freedoms, private business, less state control of the economy. And by giving more freedoms, it actually sped up the breakup of the Soviet Union. All right, number 12. 3 female leaders that we looked at. Golda Meir, the first female Prime Minister of Israel, Indira Gandhi, the first female Prime Minister of India, and Margaret Thatcher, the first female Prime Minister of Great Britain. Great Britain, of course, has since had yet another female Prime Minister. All of these women are the first in their categories. They were the first female Prime Ministers of their countries. They were instrumental in helping to shape their countries and move them forward in world relations and economics and really make these countries into what we recognize them in today. Globalization, you guys had a really great handle on this when you did it in class. It's integrating various aspects of life around the world. So economic, technological, largely connected to consumerism. You can get a phone that's made in Korea, but you buy it down the street at Best Buy. Or the internet. You can buy something online and it's shipped from across the world. So really this has increased people's connections across the world. It's made the world seem a little bit smaller than it used to. And of course, global organizations are largely economic connected or political. OPEC, of course, is connected to oil and gas sales. Initially created to set prices on oil. They still try to do that, although now that more countries are in the oil business, they don't have the monopoly they used to. But OPEC has also recently got involved with environmental issues, especially after a lot of the oil spills in the last few decades. The United Nations, we've actually already talked about, and the World Trade Organization is designed to make sure the rules of global trade are followed, that nobody's trying to cause problems. All right, if you have questions, please let me know. Study hard. You guys are going to do great on this final. I have complete faith in you. Good luck.